All right, I'm going to first introduce you to everybody. So we have Kevin Rade, we have Christy Johnson, we have John O'Neill, and Kevin McIntyre, and David Brunner. I thought I was going to remember it, but I didn't. So welcome. These are our runner-ups here for our Board of Ed, and we have a number of questions that were sent to us to the PTA's email that I have here on paper. We are going to give everybody the opportunity to answer each question. We're going to time you at about 3 minutes per question, and Dina will time you. So if you hear the little ding, kind of just finish off your question, and that way we can move on to the next. So the first question, the person who sent this, in their opinion, they feel that the district is struggling academically where they hadn't in the past. And they want to know, how would you help ensure that the district improves the academic performance of our students? Kevin?
Do you want to do an introduction first or not?
What?
Do you do an introduction, Kevin?
Oh, actually, you could do that, thank you. See, Kevin's going to help me here. Kevin, if you want to do an introduction.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Kevin Rade. I'm a 24-year resident of Blooming Grove. I'm also a retired NYPD police captain. I own a small business in town. I know many people here from the Kiwanis Club and the old Round Hill PTA. Everybody knows I love this town, and that's why I'm running for school board. I want to see a well-functioning school district. I have 3 older girls who graduated already from the school district, and my wife and I, Maureen, have a small first grader, and we want to make sure she has the same opportunities as our older kids did. So we need a well-developed staff. We need to support our staff and appreciate our teachers, and as well as, we'll go into the question about the programs and development, teacher development, etc.
I like microphones. My name is Christy Johnson. I see a lot of familiar faces, and I'm so excited for all the support. I am a mom. I'm a web designer from home. I'm very active in the community because I love this community. I'm a mom, so every kid in this district, I feel like they're mine. I'm that kind of mom. And it is important to me not only that my children receive the best opportunities, but that all of our children do, because that's how solid, beautiful, powerful communities are built. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John O'Neill. I'm in my 3rd year on the school board, and I retired from the New York City Department of Education in July 2016 after 44 years of service. 23 of the last years, I was a personnel director, predominantly Manhattan and the Bronx, and part of my function was to staff schools and districts, to hire and process school and administrative personnel, work with the unions on grievances. I was the liaison for discrimination and sexual harassment complaints. And I've been a Washingtonville resident for 27 years now. And I have 2 children, both Washingtonville graduates. My son, shortly after graduating, served 2 terms in Iraq, and he currently is a Florida resident. And my daughter is a resident of Washingtonville with 3 children, plus a surrogate child. And 3 of them are currently Washingtonville students, and the little one will start kindergarten here in the fall. And my wife, as most people know, is principal of Little Britain. And for the record, she was hired 12 years ago. She was appointed and tenured as an assistant principal. She was appointed and tenured as a principal before I started serving. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin McIntyre. I have been in the district 45 years. I taught in the district for 33 if we count the year I came back. During that time, I was involved very much with student work, whether it be with starting off as a wrestling coach, going into ski team, dealing with, what was it, the musicals that we wound up doing back in 70s and 80s. I was involved with the yearbook and a number of different things, class advisor. So I retired from that 13 years ago. So, and you can figure out the math there. So now I've been traveling the country, actually, before this, working with teachers nationally. I was working with a company going around to all the states, helping teachers engage kids in the classroom. I'm very much active in programs that involve professional development. I am very much an advocate as far as I consider teachers the number one tool that we've got to work with our kids. And if you want effective schools, you got to have effective teachers. So therefore, that's my promotion there I'm at. My wife is also, she is a teacher in the school. I met her, I always say I met her in high school, although in reality, we're a few years apart. She's still got a couple more years. She teaches at the high school right now, and she is the forensics teacher and biology teacher. I taught science at the high school. Both my sons have graduated from Washingtonville. One is going to SUNY Oneonta and majoring in psychology, and the other one's in SUNY Oswego, get the O's mixed up, majoring in meteorology of all things. And it's like, if anything, I've been on the board here for 3 years. I would like to continue. It's sometimes when you first start, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose, because there's a lot that comes at you at once. It looks pretty simple on the outside sometimes, but it's a lot more difficult than you think. Anyways, I'm here for, as far as I'm concerned, this is my city. It's been my city or town. I say Washingtonville, it's a great place when bad things happen. I have to tell you, the community in this town is worth spending the time to wind up fighting for and doing things for.
Good evening. My name is David Brunner. I've been in Washingtonville in one form or another for 38 years. I taught in the city for a year, and through I became a guidance counselor. And I was a high school guidance counselor here for 33 years, and 14 of those years I was director of guidance. Those were the 14 years that I would like to sort of but I loved what I did. I retired 5 years ago, and slowly but surely I began to realize that my experience, which is vast, my knowledge, which I consider vast, was going to waste. And I started hearing more and more things about what was going on in the district that I felt I could help. Because I've always acted as a resource. I acted as a resource for 3 principals. I acted as a resource for 3 superintendents, sort of behind the scenes. And I just felt that this was something I wanted to do. I wanted to do it last year, didn't. My 2 sons have been encouraging me. They're both Washingtonville grads. One graduated from Binghamton, one from New Paltz. And I always call Washingtonville my adopted hometown, because I went from Brooklyn to Schenectady to Albany to Monroe and finally here. So that's me.
So the first question was from someone who, in their opinion, feels that the district is struggling academically, where they feel it hadn't in the past, and they want to know how you feel you can help ensure that the district improves the academic performance of our students.
Okay. I think a big component of that is teacher development. The board is going to have a crucial decision in hiring a superintendent in the near future. So I think that superintendent or CEO of the district is going to be critical to make sure that curriculum development, the right personnel decisions are made. We really need, it shouldn't be the good old boys or girls club. Not saying that it is, but many districts are. We need to pick the right person for the right position, no matter who they may know or who they may not know. So I think, we need to recruit and train extremely qualified teachers. And I must say, in my experience with the district, I had 3 older kids that went from kindergarten to all the way through the schools and graduated college. My experiences here have been excellent. As I look out to the crowd, I see Betty Ann Van Leeuwen, who taught 2 of my daughters right here in Round Hill. So I think there are incredible teachers here in the district, and I think there's probably a lot of untapped potential that we could actually tap into in the future. And I think that picking a superintendent is going to be critical for the next 3 to 5 years with the contract.
I agree. That is probably the biggest decision that we're facing, and it's going to have the most influence on teacher development. To tag on to what Kevin said, it goes a little bit beyond just our teachers and enrichment for our students, which is where I feel that we have been lacking in the past. Great students are people who are involved in music, who are involved in sports, and I feel that the district could probably use a boost in some of these programs, or at least a little bit more promotion. In addition to teacher development, you have to burn the candle at both ends, so to speak.
Also, besides the obvious of the most critical piece is a superintendent who is an educational leader, not just an educational manager. Someone who's going to communicate, but also knows curriculum, who isn't relying upon other people for the vision of the curriculum and implementing the curriculum. As far as hiring qualified teachers, obviously, that's the foundation of any district, which I know because that was my job. Actually putting the round peg in the round hole. And quite often that isn't happening, but part of finding those teachers is hiring teachers who are diverse, who are part of the change of the community. This community has changed dramatically since I moved here 27 years ago. And our faculty does not reflect in any way, shape, or form our community. It does not mean that the faculty is not competent, but it has to reflect the children and the families in this district, because that is part of the education. And again, educational leader, diversity, and hiring qualified people. And most important, and this isn't a criticism, it's an observation. There is not equity in this district as far as resources between the elementary schools and the secondary. They all should be equal, but the elementary schools do not have the same resources as the secondary. And as everyone knows, the elementary is the foundation of the entire district. It makes the job easier in middle school and in high school. So we have to concentrate on the elementary schools and the equity on all levels.
Okay, central to all this definitely is an educational leader, which is we're talking about superintendent. They need to be somebody who has some sort of educational vision. That's part of it. The other part is that I think it's assumed that when teachers take the position after they've had 4 years of college, that they're all set. We're probably the only profession in which what happens is when you bring on a new member of the professional staff, that they're given full responsibilities of what somebody who has 20 years in there has. So we expect the same out of a first-year teacher as we expect out of a 30-year teacher. And I know that, and obviously that, let's face it, the taxpayers, that's what we want. We want the best possible program. So I want to see some educational leader that would have something along of an induction program for new teachers that basically takes them and professionally develops them. Any firm that you go to, if you are an engineer, for example, and you wound up getting a degree in engineering, even though you may be hired by somebody like Con Edison or whatever, they would say basically, whatever you learned in college, no problem. We're going to show you how we do it in Con Edison, and we're going to teach you our way. Well, that's the same thing we have to do with Washingtonville. There's more than one way to approach education. There's so many different pedagogies out there. My cry has always been, choose one, at least. Go with something and start trying to build upon it instead of like, sometimes I feel like it's mud on the wall, you know, like we'll try a little bit of this for a couple of years. And by the way, Washingtonville is not the only one who does something like this. a lot of school districts, sadly to say, they basically try this out and try this out. And then they don't necessarily use the data research of how this wound up affecting the kids down the road. You know, is this something which is an effective program? Is this really where our money should be going? Or should we wind up looking elsewhere? But it goes back to that educational leader and the people that he's got working with him. In the White House now, I believe that there's a strong staff that's there in terms of curriculum and instruction and in terms of a program that way, looking at things with Barbara Quinn. But it's like, it's a start. And so what we have to do is we have to continue this. And I believe that the key person, of course, is your superintendent. Of course, again, you only have so many who apply for the position. So out of those, you know, you have to look around and say, who's the best? I have to be honest, it's not a position that I would want personally, even as a teacher. It's really a tough job. It's like, but anyways, so that's my view on it.
Reminds me of many years ago, we were under the gun because London Woodbury High School was getting more, what they called at that time. Can people hear me? Because I tend to because we weren't getting, had as many Regents diplomas as they did. And I'm a young guidance counselor at the time. And so we looked and we looked and we looked and we're trying to figure out what was it that was stopping our kids from getting Regents diplomas. And we looked at data, and data is critical. And I always get the feeling that data is not looked at enough. This was a gripe of mine for years. What it came down to was the middle school math program, excuse me, at that time it was the junior high school math program. The kids were not being put into college preparatory math in ninth grade. Maybe they saw the honors group was put into what was called back then sequential 1. Okay? So we were getting kids integrated 1, and most of our 10th graders, it was almost like they were behind the 8 ball to get a Regents diploma. We saw this. They started doing sequential 1. Our Regents diplomas went past Monroe Woodbury High School. The key, as I see it, is curriculum development. We did something a number of years ago that no school district in the area did. It was done. We went to block scheduling. And it was a night, the kids were gonna fall apart. You can't do it. It's great. It's wonderful. Everybody liked it. We had, the block scheduling was such, and I was the scheduler in high school. I loved it. Kids would have 4 classes one semester, 3 classes the other semester. Kids loved it, teachers loved it, so of course the state came down with an absurd thing with the Regents tests. They wouldn't give it certain tests in January. So a lot of people said, what are we going to do? So now we're on the AB block, which I don't think is as good. But we have a tradition, if someone will lead it, to change our curriculum. And it's got to be based on data. What's going on? I know the teachers in the high school. I work with them for years. We have good teachers. What is going on? That's a question that has to be answered. And it may be something that is simple, it may be something that is complex. But if indeed, once we look at the data, because that's where you have to look first, to make sure that indeed we are struggling and where, then, as Max said, Barbara Quinn is our new curriculum person, and she's dynamite. I've always said you have to go to your resources and you have to look at the data. And once that's done, then you can figure out where you're going to go from there. But to simply make statements and then, oh, we're going to do this, without a full look at it, just makes no sense.
Thank you. She's just going to move over to there, but my plug is over there, or batteries are dying. Okay, so the next question, also same person, I'm prefacing it, in their opinion, they felt that our district has always been very competitive in athletics, and they don't feel that this is the case any longer. They want to know, how do you think that we can assist coaches in helping children reach their potential in athletics?
Let's look at Roger.
Yeah.
Why don't I
You
start?
want Kristen to start? and go
Yeah,
with
that's
Lisa?
fine. We'll take turns starting.
You're gonna-
I thought you were saying me because my daughter's an athlete. But, you know, there's a lot of different things that I think can be done differently. Now, I am not an experienced board member. I'm just a mom looking at things from the outside. But when I look at other school districts, it's kind of hard to motivate a coach to motivate your students when the fields are substandard and our facilities are substandard. I think it kind of starts there as well. A while back, and I don't know if this is still the case, where even for modified coaches, we were looking at having a requirement that they be a certified teacher. And I didn't agree with that because we have amazing coaches in our district that are not certified teachers and more than qualified to coach our children. So that would be another bonus to getting good coaches, is to not have that requirement. I think that's pretty much it. I'm not as long-winded as the guys here. I'm a mom. I gotta get to the point quick and in a hurry because my kid's attention span is about that big.
Well, as a grandfather, I'll be just as brief, but as a board member, I think most people are not clear exactly what board members do and their restrictions. And I don't know if the new candidates have taken the one-on-one training yet, because it's actually an eye-opener. But it still comes down to leadership and the administrators within the district. Actually getting coaches who know the sport that they're coaching. Okay. Now, as far as certification, districts have to initially look at teachers who are in the district that qualify as coaches with the certification. This is statewide. They do the same thing in the city. The coaching positions have to first be offered to certified teachers, but again, who are also qualified coaches. I am not in agreement of taking a teacher, a certified teacher, and make them a coach and they know nothing about the sport, because that's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. But the board does not have a policy, and as long as we're on the board, we'll never have a policy excluding finding qualified coaches.
Thank goodness.
You know, sometimes people can make statements, and I don't know where they get all their facts from. So to say that we have substandard programs in terms of sports, I see a lot of kids come past our tables that we congratulate who go on to states.
I didn't say programs, I said facilities, to be clear.
Okay, but I'm just saying there is a question.
The person that is asking this question, in their opinion,
That's correct.
feels that we no longer are a competitive district for athletics. So that's why I worded, they didn't word it that way, I reworded it, because the way they word it, they're saying we 100% are a district that are no longer competitive.
Yeah, and I don't know where I don't know where that would come from, that we're no longer competitive. When I see these kids who are either on the swimming team or on the track team, we do phenomenal job that way with those kids. Now, what can the board do? Again, I think John's got a great point here. There is a limitation of what the board actually does. You know, we are not the ones who run the programs. We are the ones who hire the superintendent. That's about it. Superintendent runs your programs. So therefore, we oversee things that are happening in there. When we get feedback of things, we investigate what it might be. So if we saw results, I'm a type of person like David was saying earlier. You know, you got to see some data to wind up saying this is where we fit in terms of the districts that are in Orange County. There are 700 schools in New York State, and or 700 high schools. in New York State. And when you wind up seeing the number of award winners that we come back with our track program and our swimming program, I'm putting those two out to point. Now, I know that recently with our tennis program, if you notice that they handled Cornwall their first defeat in 91 games, 91 straight games. And
Go Wizards!
So we've got, if we do have things that we say we're not as competitive, maybe what happens is the athletic department, if that be the case, needs to look at what it is we could do to support those people that may need further training to be better coaches.
Good job.
I was a basketball official for 11 years, and I did track and field as well. And one of the things that I learned really quick, and by the way, we've had, it goes in cycles. Sometimes we have certain teams that are really up there and certain teams are down. But anyway, different districts have different strengths in different sports. Why? Tradition. It's the only thing I can think of. We do pretty well across the board, okay? I think our best programs have been swimming, soccer, and our football games, the teams are usually pretty good, but it doesn't matter. As Max said, look at the data. I think I know who asked that question, and she asked me that question as well, and it was something about they weren't able to get coaches. And my answer to that is, we've always gone outside the district if necessary to hire coaches. And it's been very rare. So, I mean, we have some swimming coach from another district, how is that true? So, I don't know where that comes from.
Well, I didn't get the,
sorry, Kevin.
I didn't get any questions. I didn't get the questions before the exam today. But I'm going to go a completely different route. Coaching is not about necessarily always succeeding in that sport. I've coached CYO basketball for over 10 years. I coached all my older girls. I coached my little one. Coaching takes on a much bigger, you should be a role model to those kids. How you act, how you treat them, how you treat the other coaches, how you make them shake hands at the end of the game. Coaching is more about being a role model to children than winning or losing. Sure, winning's important, but it's not as important as teaching them to have good character and play hard and shake the other team's hand. And that being said, going to facilities, I recently saw pictures of the high school pool. And with a district, I know pools are a huge pain for school districts. They're expensive, they're burdensome, but that being said, the pool, I saw pictures of the locker rooms and stuff, and some of it appears could be just simple custodial issues. And I'm not, one thing I'll promise you is if I'm elected on the board, I'll promise you transparency and honesty. If you come to me, I'm not going to have all the answers, but when I see pictures of a pool with ripped shower curtains and stuff, and it's not to, I don't want to cast blame on whoever's working up in that pool area or the custodial staff, but the fact is, little things like that count. And if it's as simple as directing someone to go up and clean it, that's really what the administration, things like that. We have people from other districts using that facility. That represents our district. So one thing I do promise you in all this is I will always be available. Everybody knows where to find me, 6 days a week. And I'm not going to have all the answers, but I promise you I'll be very transparent, whether it's the Little Britain air quality issue that could affect the children and the staff. You will always get a straight answer from me. Obviously, personnel issues and executive session stuff, I can't. But you will, we may not always agree, but hopefully you'll appreciate my candor and my honesty.
Okay. What do you bring to the table regarding school security and ensuring the safety of our children at our school buildings?
Okay. Well, actually, I was on the initial safety committee when we were coming up with a plan that eventually brought in police officers to all of our schools. On top of that, the district is already working on enhancements for each school. And that includes, for now, the immediate plan is to continue to have a police presence in all of our schools.
What do I bring? In terms of knowing security, nothing, actually. But that's the only, it's like, that's not where my expertise lies. But in terms of listening to those who do bring to the table ideas about what we can do, and there's some limitation to what we're told, only because of the fact you don't want certain things getting out into the district of, here's the plan of what we wind up doing on different things. But if anything, they have my unconditional support in terms of like wanting to see the safety of any child in the school. I would never, ever, ever want to see something happen to any of our children. And I don't care what their age is, I don't care what their background is, I want to protect every kid that's in that school. So one of the things that I'm trying to push forward is looking at what we deal with in terms of mental health in our school. Because if anything, that's an issue that's not been addressed in a lot of places. We talk about all the violence that's happening around, but nobody seems to be addressing that side of the issue, in which, how do we take care of our kids and make them see that, you know what, we may all look different, we come from different backgrounds, but inside we're more alike than we are different. And we have got to wind up like teaching them that and get them to see that, and hopefully the combination of the two, make them see that on the outside they're safe without scaring them, but at the same time teach them to be strong on the inside to be able to stand up. And a lot of our kids do. They do report incidents that they wind up seeing and hearing, and we do promote that, and we get the teachers to promote that.
Say something.
Mike Mack, as far as security, I was never involved in it. But I've seen over the years, especially years ago, we used to have once a month, once a week, one of the local, whether it was Blooming Grove or Washingtonville, a couple of the guys would come over and have lunch with administrators and so forth. And they'd be around, you'd see them. And I am a supporter of having a police officer right now in the schools. There's no question about it. It's funny, Mac and I were talking before about something that I just started to look at. And as a counselor, it really turned me on. We used to have something here called the Mimi program. And it was terrific. John Lantry he was the principal here, right?
Yes, Ron.
And he started this program. And it had to do, it wasn't just don't do drugs, don't drink, but it was to have the kids feel better about themselves. I am lovable and something.
Thank you.
I lack, yeah. And this thing is called social emotional learning. And one of my fraternity brothers is doing it up in Massachusetts. And I just started looking at it. I think it's important that we start looking again. I think because of state testing, which is like, state testing, we've gotten away from the concept of social emotional learning and that type of thing. You start with the kids in the early grades, and they just get used to using words having to do with emotions, understanding the difference in who they are and how they're the same. So as far as the security, yeah, full support all the way. But the kids have to be involved in some way or another in learning what they can do and how strong they are. And maybe if we get one kid who maybe would have been a problem, but he had something called social emotional learning or something like it, we've done a good job. It's not all curriculum. It's not all curriculum.
Well, this subject is very near and dear to my heart. Many people don't realize when the shooting down in Florida happened, I quietly was meeting with parents and Mr. Reese, Senator Skoufis, who was assemblyman at the time, police chiefs from other districts that had retired police officers working in their districts. The sheriff of Orange County was trying to force young, new hired sheriffs into schools. A lot of people don't know that. Basically saying, using one line from the state police training guide saying, SROs have to be full-time sworn police officers, which was rebuked over and over again. It was for state police training. They plugged one line out. Could you imagine having a 22-year-old sheriff in the high school, aggressive, younger police officers are just naturally more aggressive and looking to make arrests. In a school district, you don't necessarily need that. I was a huge proponent, quietly behind the scenes. We have an untapped resource of retired police officers in our community. Me as a retired police captain from 26 years from the NYPD. You have Scott Davey, you have Jimmy Cronin, who I personally worked with, and others who were really experienced. They're looked at as father figures. They coached. They're mentors to children. So I was a huge behind the scenes, quietly pushing and basically making the sheriff's argument hold no weight. Retired police officers also have the experience if something happens. The experience to deal with children, deal with the community that you get over a 20, 25-year police career. More importantly, I was a police officer in the emergency service unit of the New York City Police Department. That's their SWAT team. I was intricately involved in tabletops and planning the Republican National Committee convention, papal visits, and other huge happenings in New York City. So I think I bring a very unique area of expertise in regards to school safety. But I think it was, I don't know if it was Mr. O'Neill or Kevin Mack that brought up the district also. Mental health is just such a critical issue. I went to the last 2 parents courses. What's the formal name of the courses for the parents again? The district puts on, Mr. Saladino. I went to the last 2, and the district is really taking this seriously.
The parent workshop.
The workshops. I went to 2, the last one being very well attended. But mental health is something that we really need to address, and I think the district, I commend the board and the district, because it really does look like they're taking it very seriously. But that's an important issue when you talk about overall school security. No school, the schools are very safe. Our community, we live in one of the safest communities in New York State, but it's always a threat. And you always have to try to think outside the box to keep because number one, the teachers and the children's safety is what we should be concerned about. And I think everybody's concerned about, regardless of your background. But I think I bring a very unique, long-term perspective of school security, especially in this. So I love whoever gave that question.
It's a great question. Well, I'm not an Avenger or a black belt, and I've never been a police officer, and I've never been a teacher, but I'm a mom. And while I can't put a security plan together, I can tell you what I want for my kids. I want a police officer who's not intimidating like the ones that we have. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of meeting any of them, but they're all amazing. And that's the kind of positive image I want in our kids' minds of who and what law enforcement is. So the district did an absolutely fabulous job there. I couldn't be happier. The workshop about mental health for our children, another huge leg of better education for our kids is educating parents. And those series are phenomenal. I give them 2 solid thumbs up. Okay.
Next one. Should parents be given information about opting their kids out of state testing like they are given about taking the tests?
I don't think you should ever keep secrets from parents. That's the big part right there. Here's the deal with testing, and I really have a hard time with this one. And I say hard time in the sense that, there's supposed to be, there's a book that if you want to read a cute book, I think it's made more for teachers than it is for kids, but it's called Testing Miss Malarkey. And it's about how the environment of the school changes when the state test is coming on the scene. And how everybody changes in terms of attitude and the amount of stress that's put on kids. Technically speaking, those tests, and that's our assessments, there's a different, that slight change of the thing. We need to get, as you talk about the academic success of the kids in the school. You need to get data in order to put together programs that work. If you decide to opt out as parents, which is your right, what happens is it denies the data to the district to wind up making the decisions to make the curricular changes that have to be made to better the kids in the end. Now, that said, it's how do we wind up looking at and preparing kids for tests and developing them. I always taught when I was teaching school, I wound up telling the kids that the toughest exams they'll ever have would be in my classroom. Regents at the end of the year was not as tough. It's the same level of everything, and I'll prepare you for these things. If anything, what we need to do is we need to life, yeah, there are a lot of tests out there. I'm watching one of my guys go through that up in Oswego, and, we compare them one way in the K through 12, but the ones who succeed are the ones who can handle that type of pressure later on. And, when we wind up telling them, oh, you're doing such a great job, you are excellent, all that kind of stuff, they get to a point in life where they may not be able to handle a test. So what do you do? I mean, what are your options? So kids have to learn that the tests aren't the be-all, end-all, but for us as educators, we need the data in order to make the decisions to help them out. It's kind of a double-edged sword that we're talking about here, and it's our catch-22. I don't know which one we want to use on this one. But I'm looking at it in terms of should we tell the parents? They have that option. Should we give them all the information about how that information is going to be used to help their child? I think we need to give that to them too.
What do you say? As a school counselor, I work with data. When my kids came to me, if I didn't see what was going on with them, or if when they came to me and said, Mr. Brenner, I don't know. I know the information. And I used to sometimes I get this with transfer kids. Mr. Brenner, I know the information, but have you ever tested for a learning disability? No. And pardon me for people, I'm from the city, whatever. 9 times out of 10 I was from the city. But the point that Mac makes, we have to have data. Should we give all the information to the parents? Flood information. That was always my thing. When I first got here, I had a couple of wonderful people who were guidance counselors from another era, and you weren't supposed to tell parents anything, nothing. Now, I'm telling you, it's critical. That's critical to give parents all the information so that we can work with them, with the data that we're getting, okay? But as Max said, it's an assessment. In order for us to create curriculum that the kids need, you have to know where they're at. And I remember when my 29-year-old now son, he was in the first class when in 4th grade, I think, when the first tests were coming out, the assessments, he was coming home with hives. He was so uptight, and he loved school until that time. It's the emphasis that we put on that really makes kids crazy, makes teachers crazy. So, yeah, that's it. Data.
So in full disclosure, I had a long conversation with my brother, who's a superintendent out on Long Island, where a lot of districts in Long Island, over 50% opt out of the tests. Our district, I think it's about 60% take the exam, about 40% opt out. Federal law mandates 95% take the exam. But that being said, testing is important. It provides Mrs. Quinn and the district, it provides teachers with valuable information about their children, about how they're doing. But of course, like many other things, New York State completely messed out the rollout, like the computer crash in this last state exam, and they rolled out, they rolled out Common Core and testing, but so not to use that word Common Core, but the rollout. What happens is the state consistently doesn't do a good job rolling things out. But testing, my wife and I have decided, my older girls, there was no real debate about opting out of tests, as my kids are all just out of college and working. For our first grader, we decided that she's going to take the test, and I think it's important feedback for the teachers to the caring teachers we have, like Ms. Noveski in Taft. She can use that data from testing to maybe help our daughter Elizabeth, in her academics, and the district can develop curriculum, with the data from testing. So I'm going to encourage people to take the test. But that being said, no parent should be forced to take tests. Each parent should be in control of their own child. Nobody should tell the parents you have to, or use trickery to try to get them to take the test. And I'm not saying that's occurring here, but But it's up to every parent. The parent should have the final decision. And my wife and I decided that our daughter will take the test they go up, because it's important for the district to get that information.
As a mom, it's wise to not keep things from mom because I am darn near clairvoyant when it comes to my kid. Just kidding. Listen, I can see both sides of this. I do agree that if the data is useful, then you really do need to push that out to the parents because a lot of parents feel that the data is useless. And maybe it is just a lack of information. So that's what I'm getting back for opting out. Is it hurting their child academically? I don't think so, because a lot of the kids that opt out from testing are still strong students. We really need to get the information out there. A lot of parents feel that the test is not adequately designed and doesn't provide the right kind of information. So I think we can work on that together, and just instead of just saying it's better if you have them take the test. That's not good enough for a lot of us. We need information so that we can make the right decisions for our kids.
And our kids are going to take tests when they're older, SATs and regions.
Yeah, but as a district, you can train them on how to take a test. Like, I was a horrible test taker. I mean, you talk to New York State, and they probably had me way below average. I go down to Florida, and they figured out that I couldn't take tests. So did they throw more tests at me? No. They said, Christy, here are some testing skills. So it's more than just throwing tests at them for practice. You can train them as well. I think we need to work on it a little bit more, and it'll be fine. It's not a crisis, y'all. Sorry.
As a mom, but technically I was a mom. I was a single parent since my daughter was 4 and my son was 7, so I was a mom too. Okay.
Call me out.
All right. Okay. Everything that everyone said is correct, but to hone in on the actual question, okay? Parents should have the option, if that's their philosophy, okay, to opt out. So in directly answering the question, the district has to be careful because they cannot make it seem like they're trying to tell parents you should opt out because of the 95%. Because it will eventually cost the district and all of us money, okay? However, what the district can do is give a link to the state site regarding testing, because the information about opting out is on that site. That's from a mom.
Okay. Everyone got her on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope I'm reading this one correctly, so if you're in the room and I read it incorrectly and it was your question, please correct me. Do you think it is important to have a closer relationship with administration or parents / the community? So I'm guessing they mean like, do you, the BOE, feel it's better, that it's important to have a closer relationship with administration or community parents?
Is that Kevin?
We're starting with David.
Pardon my,
What's good, starting with a guidance counselor.
pardon my goodness. Should the Board of Education, yeah, okay.
That's what I'm getting from the
It's
question.
fine, it's fine. Because it's funny, I was thinking about that on the way over here. I remember when I first got here, there seemed to be a relationship that the Board of Ed had with the community. That, I don't know, it was just out there. Now, I'm not saying this board doesn't and I'm going to change that, no. But I think, we're Wizardville, okay, we all are. And we have to be able to see the people that are in charge, what they're doing. And I think the board does a pretty good job with this. Because I remember, if I was at a play, there were always a couple of board members there. When I ran the orientation, 9th grade orientation, there were always a couple of board members attending. So I think that there's always been an openness with board members because we're part of the community, just as we were as counselors. So, yeah, I mean, I think it should be. I think it is, to an extent. I don't think the faculty, I think part of that was faculty. I don't think they see, right?
Administration. Yeah.
Administration. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I always had the philosophy of openness, of being available to families. And see, I think a lot of that has to do with figuring out what is the necessary resource. Because a lot of times, like I was at the meeting where 5 people showed up to having to do with feedback towards the new superintendent. Very few people showed up, which bothered me. And all I could think of was, there were these 2 wonderful ladies there, and they had a specific agenda that they were bringing to the board, and that they were bringing, that they wanted to see having a new superintendent. And then I don't think I'll ever see these 2 ladies again.
Actually, I was there,
You were there.
one of them.
It was you?
And here I am, yeah.
He was talking about the 2 on that side.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Just didn't recognize.
Okay.
And it's just so, and all I could think of was, well, okay, this one lady, I wish she could go and talk with the high school principal. And I wish this other lady could talk to the high school social worker, or the person down in the elementary school, and so forth and so on. Because we have wonderful resources. It's just a question of, when parents used to call me and say, that teacher, blah, blah, blah. Well, did you talk to the teacher? No. It's the same thing. We have to identify a resource, look to see who could help, and then see what's going on. And that's how I kind of look at this. Although I don't like the question.
If elected, I'm going to represent you, the community. That your children will be my #1 priority. So I think it's important as a board member, and I feel I'm already in a unique position where I am super close with so many residents of the community. Mary Beth's sitting in the audience. We co-hosted. I jumped on her back, grabbed the coattails. The first Easter egg hunt in Washingtonville. So Mary Beth and I sponsored on our own the first Easter egg hunt. But I was a founding member of the placemaking. I'm a co-founder of Preserve Blooming Grove. I attend many town and village meetings, throughout the town. I'm the Kiwanis Club, one of the founding members, was a 3-year vice president. I'm the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a volunteer with the Community Events Committee and the movie nights. I went to a couple of the parent instructional classes, and I plan on attending, if elected, more of the school events. So I think I am very involved with the community in every aspect already. I think I'm very approachable and again, transparent. So I think, but it's also very important to have a good relationship with administrators, because when people come with you, as a board member, you're only one person. You can't be the problem solver for every issue in the community. But I promise to be open and have conversations and steer people to the right people in the district. So it's important to build bridges and relationships with both administrators and staff, as well as my love for this community, which I think is clear.
It is what he said. No.
As a mother.
I'm sorry, as a mom. Thank you, John. I missed my intro. Definitely the community. I mean, I am a lacrosse mom, I'm a PTO mom, I'm a Seahawk. Without these organizations, I would not have come to know some of the issues that we're having. Not a lot of people come to the Board of Ed meetings because they can't. So you really have to kind of be out there, which is what is my intention, if elected, is to be the voice of, you want to say it for me? The moms. That, because it's a unique perspective, aside from, having experience working in the district or being a former police officer and top-notch security guy. Absolutely, 100% the community. I feel I didn't take Board of Ed 101 yet, but I feel that the side of the administration falls a little bit more on the superintendent than it would the board. I feel like I want to be your voice.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm going to start calling you Dad.
All right. I've always been very approachable. When we started the school board, we actually started Let's Talk, and we had it going twice a month for a year and a half, and we were lonely. No one wanted to talk to us. I mean, a few people would come in. Once a month we would have it at Betty's, and the only one who would talk to us was Kevin, because we were there. He didn't want us to sneak out, you know. So the whole concept of Let's Talk was not, if you have a complaint, come in and talk to us. Let's talk, the whole idea of that is, come in and talk to us, get to know us, but more importantly, we want to get to know you. I mean, people forget that board members are community people. We pay the same taxes that you pay. Most of us, we have children in the school districts. We have the same issues that you have. So it's not us against them. We're not keeping anything from you. In fact, sometimes we don't find things out unless you tell us. We're not getting it from the administration sometimes. We're getting it from you, and then we check it out. So the whole point of that is most of us have been accessible. I walk into schools, I attend functions all the time, and in fact I was doing that before I was a school board member. So it is important for board members to be out there, because we're supposed to be your voice, and it should remain that way. And in fact, as a personnel director, and there are people in this community that actually worked in schools, and some of them I processed, that actually live in Washingtonville. We have a principal a New York City principal who lives in Washingtonville, and those people can attest that I was a rather unique HR director, because there was no difference between a community member and a superintendent as far as I was concerned. My conversations were identical with each person. Each person that worked in the district was the equivalent to me. They were all equal, and always transparent, always upfront, and remained with a moral compass. And I never got involved in politics in the city, because you cannot maintain your moral compass. And because of that, I maintain being approachable. And if we could get a little interactive here, you had brought something up at a forum that to me was very concerning, and I motioned to you, but then I got involved talking to other people because I wanted to have a conversation with you. We see each other for about, we've been seeing each other, let me finish the whole thing before my wife, okay, for 2 years in an undisclosed location where we have breakfast.
Yes, not
Okay.
together, but at the same time.
And what was disturbing to me, and what I wanted to talk to you about after the forum, was that you brought up an issue of concern in the high school, okay, which is a concern nationwide, a legitimate concern. But what bothered me, and why I wanted to talk to you, is that for 2 years, or how long this has come to your attention, you could have walked over to me at any time. I'm approachable.
Right.
I want to find out. When I go into schools, if you don't know what I look like, you have no idea I'm a board member. I do that on purpose. I did that as a personnel director in the city. I would just walk around and, you know, blend in, because that's how you learn what's really going on. You don't learn what's going on at board meetings. You learn by going into the schools or having conversations in the community. So that's my dad version, not the short mom version of how I feel about that.
My answer, yes. No, it's like, years ago, many years ago, I was once told by a parent at a parent-teacher conference, and by the way, sometimes you have to learn how to take constructive feedback, that I was unapproachable as a teacher. All right, I'm sorry. It's like, this is what the parent said. The students felt that because it was an accelerated class at the time, and they said, this is the quote, my child, and I'm speaking for, and this is the exact quote, I'm speaking for a number of parents when I say, you are unapproachable as a teacher. I had never been told that in my life, and I had no idea what that meant, so I said, well, maybe it's time to examine yourself, because maybe you are. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We don't know, it's a frog in the water. You don't know you're changing, and you changed. So I tried to make myself just the opposite, more approachable. And my family has a joke that when they send me out for a gallon of milk or whatever it may be, that it's gonna, if I go to Stop and Shop, which is right around the corner from us, because we're right across from the monument there, 9/11 Memorial, that it takes me an hour and a half, 2 hours. And, they no longer call, like, are you okay? It's no longer like, emergency things. They know that if anything, I've gotten in a conversation with somebody someplace along the line. I guess I don't have a problem speaking. I think what happens, though, is some people may feel like they can't say something to you for some reason. And I know that with administrators or with the teachers don't seem to have any problems to tell them so. But or the custodians, those two groups tend to talk to me. But and not that I go out looking for stuff, but it's just that maybe somebody looks at you and says, well, I can't really talk to them about it. But I think what the beautiful thing about the people that I'm working with on the board, we're all volunteers. You realize that the pay didn't go up. So we're all volunteers here. Yeah, the game's on. Yeah, I was worried. So what happens? Watch out! If I finish the thing, then we're really going to move. We are approachable, and we look for that. And when we started that Let's Talk, we're looking for solutions. If you got a better solution, by all means, please tell us. We're open to suggestions. But we want that feedback because it's, we are people, just like yourself. We have our own views on things, but at the same time, hopefully we can be open about listening to another's point of view, because that's where the dialogue comes in. That's why I think our community is important. I think our nation needs to learn that too, in terms of dialogue, with no two sides talking to each other. Anyways, that's a whole other thing. So the answer is yes.
For the record, my son said you were not approachable. He was a student.
Okay, so what do you feel is an acceptable timeline for alerting parents to something in school that affects students' safety and health?
Immediately. This is an issue that comes to mind with going on with the Little Britain air quality. In a school system, things happen. Things happen in school. Listen, there's almost 4,000 students. Things are going to happen. I think it's important to get information out as soon as possible to parents, especially if it comes to the health and safety of children. I understand that you have to do it in a deliberate way. You don't want to create undue panic, but something when it comes to the issue of Little Britain, those parents should have been told immediately. For people who don't know, Little Britain had carbon dioxide, high levels of carbon dioxide. I met with parents from Little Britain last week. An issue like that, there has to be full transparency. And remember, not only for the children, but for the staff. They need to know what's going on, immediately. So something when it comes to security or issues like what occurred in Little Britain, the answer is immediately. There needs to be, parents need to know.
Absolutely, I agree, without causing panic. And of course, reassuring the parent that you're working on a solution but you do need to inform parents immediately. It is my decision whether or not I want my child in that situation and no one else is. So it needs to be absolutely immediate, if not yesterday.
Absolutely immediate. This is a sore subject I'm only speaking for myself. I think everyone's in agreement on the board. It's a sore subject with us because we were not informed either. So we were in the same boat. And there is no excuse for that. And it's not just about children. It's about anyone who walks in the building. They're more than teachers, they're monitors, you have visitors walking in. So you identify what it is and let everyone know what's going on.
Where was the carbon dioxide, wherever it is coming from? What was the cause?
They don't know yet.
They're still
waiting.
looking at it.
Yes. It's like that was our discussion last night.
We had a presentation last night.
Yeah. From Quest, in which the answer, that was the question that was asked of them. But to get first back to the question, John, I'm sorry, you finished? Yeah. Okay. All right. You want to check? Okay. Immediate, I say immediate after checking. The whole thing about causing panic, that's important. But really, to keep things like that, under the wraps of parents, I don't agree with that at all. Or us as the board. We can't do anything if we don't have the information. We don't know that. I hate finding out the information someplace else, and I get very upset when I find it from somebody else before I should get it from the source that I should get it from. But as far as, last night being told that basically they still don't have an answer for that, and the quip at one point was, well, just take the kids out of the classroom and everything's fine. That's not the answer, no. So hopefully they'll be able to do it. I mean, I'm thinking there's got to be a better way of testing that, like putting a carbon dioxide cylinder in there with no people, and then finding out how fast it winds up, like the carbon dioxide dissipates, or whatever, without using kids as subjects. Anyways, but immediate, yes.
ASAP.
Yeah.
And I think what's important there is as possible, as soon as possible, after checking. Because there are rumors that come into the school and they're not real. However, if there's even an inkling that a kid or a teacher or a custodian or an administrator, anybody in that building may have something wrong with them out. Parents, this is why, then we're going to check. Boom. There you go.
I just want to add, I'm flabbergasted that the board didn't know. I am appalled that the board had a presentation last night and FOIL requests by parents for results have been unanswered or delayed. In the police department, if someone got seriously injured on a search warrant or something, we always had like an after action. And I think that in this situation and others, not to point blame or to get anyone in trouble, there really needs to be an independent review of this issue. And it's even more concerning because what Mr. O'Neill said they didn't know. There really has to be a thorough independent look at this whole Little Britain thing. And not to get anyone in trouble, just to make sure that never happens again. That children in a classroom with high levels of carbon dioxide, again, and how the district responds. Again, not to fire people, to discipline people, but just to make sure it doesn't happen again, for people in the district.
Christy, starting with you. What is your opinion on how a school district elects its Board of Education members?
I think they should let me decide. As a mom. What is my opinion on how a school district elects its board members? The democratic way, right? And free, open election. I'm going to put it out there since this is being taped. Don't make me pick up the microphone now because I will preach. We need people to vote. for that process to work. In every election, school, library, certainly village and town, my goodness, where are you? Come vote, I'll drive you. I have a small car, we fit. We can do this. It really is the only way. I do believe that people should be able to elect their own representation, hands down. So vote for me.
I find the question a little confusing.
I'm just
Because
reading it
there-
as they said.
Yeah, because there is a legal process that you have to follow statewide. So it's about voting, and it's about getting people out, people getting the information and voting. That's it's an odd question.
Ward systems. I think that was the question
Well,
related to
we have one of those.
the at-large voting versus ward systems.
We'll get to that one. I have one of those too. Don't worry,
That's the same
we'll get to you. Okay, Kevin, an opinion on the, how the election works?
Okay, yeah, it's, I guess I was confused by the question only because if anything, we haven't, it's sad to say, we have an apathetic society. And I'm not saying Washingtonville, I'm just saying in general. You guys are exceptions. I mean, to this, that you are here tonight spending wonderful time with us. You know, it's like, thanks very much. I really thank you very much. But it's getting people out to wind up voting in the first place. And it should be a democratic process in which all views are heard, that anybody's allowed to run in the situation, and at the same time that we wind up like getting everybody out and getting their check or box colored in or whatever it is out there to vote on May 21st. Nobody's mentioned that yet. Next Tuesday, 1 week from today, May 21st, at the high school. Yeah, at the high school, to get out there to vote. It's like, and so yeah.
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 And Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think the question was gauged to award, so I think you go to the award question first. But the queen of voter participation just arrived, Rachel Sampson.
You want me to move? That question's
But everybody who knows me, you know, the past 5 years I own a business in town. As I said before, I'm one of the co-founders of Preserve Bloom Grove. You know, our big thing is voter apathy. And school boards, I think normally, about 18% vote, 18 to 24%, something. And I'm just going to keep it real because that's how I do it. You know, we do not, as a district, you know, want to become another East Ramapo or Lakewood, New Jersey. We need to increase our voter registration because there are people residing in our district that would and could, if they could, divert funds from public education to private schools. And I think everybody can, you know, kind of read between the lines. We need to increase our voter turnout. And then I'll go into the award question because I was very involved with that with the town.
Okay, I'm going to read the award question. We're going to start Kevin, since he left off. Do you feel that the current at-large method provides equal representation district-wide? Award systems such as in the town of Blooming Grove provides equal representation for all areas of the district. Would you be willing to support legislation that would allow districts to elect the school boards via award system?
I 100% support award system. I was one of the people who was instrumental to bringing back to the town to make sure one group of people, no matter who they are, doesn't take over a town board, a school board for their own purposes. You just have to Google East Ramapo or Lakewood to see what's happening in other districts. So award system for the town, you know, came, believe it or not, at personal expense to me. My business was inspected based on complaints when I was pro-ward by people in political power. I was part of the original ward committee with Mr. Fromagé and other people here today, Sue-Ann. And I was very passionate and one of the few members of one party, not to get into partisan politics, and I received personal, very aggressive, I don't even know how to put it. I was I was come at from every different angle because I supported the award system for school, for the town. The school district's the same thing. I feel equal representation. The people in Mountain Lodge should have the same representation as the people on Tut Hill Road and the people in Salisbury Mills. So it's all about equal representation. And we do have a changing population. We need to be sure that everybody in every part of the community has a voice, for our school board. So I fully support, whether or not it leads me to have to run against 2 incumbents if I'm fortunate to run. It's award system for schools is very important for our district and some neighboring districts in both Orange and Rockland counties.
I agree on multiple levels. Equal representation is more important than any one seat on the board. It is extraordinarily important. I am 100% for awards for the school board. I think it is the best way to ensure equal representation.
So instead of boring everyone and just agreeing with everything, I'll add just a little twist to this, because I have a concern. I don't believe that's the silver bullet. I believe there's a silver bullet, and Kevin touched on it, and it's a very difficult silver bullet, but a silver bullet nonetheless. With our population, we will always have the numbers. The key is to get people to vote, to galvanize the voters. I believe that that should always be the prime focus, to galvanize the voters. We have a different population in East Ramapo. My mother-in-law is affected in East Ramapo. In East Ramapo, the Achilles heel there was a large immigrant population who could not vote. The concern I have is giving up even one board seat to a potentially toxic representative. Because if you think that it's just about, well, you vote and, it's 6 against 1, there's a lot of information, confidential information in executive sessions that should never get out and can be misused. If we get one toxic personality with an agenda that is not beneficial to our community, we're going to have problems. And there's no guarantee, if the apathy continues, that in a few years it won't just be given one seat up. It could potentially be given another seat up. So we have to be very careful. It is an option. It may very well be our better option. But right now, galvanizing our voters, making them aware, getting them out to vote, not just for the ward, but for the budgets and things that are really important for our community, is the prime focus. And the particular voting group that all of us may be concerned about, they have something that we don't have, or we haven't exhibited. And that is patience. They're very strategic, and they're not knee-jerk, and they're united. And we have to find ways to galvanize everyone, to unite everyone, because we have the numbers. We have a completely different population than some of the other towns that have been taken over, and we have history to learn from. And I think that is our first option. And if that doesn't work, then we have to go. And equal representation is important, but you need to be careful about placing someone in a situation where they have information that can be used against us. Let's face it, there's an oath of confidentiality, but a lot, some people, they don't lend to that oath. And some people justify that their oath is only to certain people. So we need to be cautious.
I love the idea of equal representation. But if you look here, we have 5 people sitting up here, 3 seats. It was open to everyone in the district.
Yes.
The Democratic Party now has 22 candidates, is it? We're going to have every state represented, I think, by the time they wind up finishing. I really think that the key factor in all of this stuff is we're avoiding it, and that's the apathy that's happening in our town. And
Everywhere. It's not just us.
Yeah. That's true. But what I'm saying is, for this situation, I have no problem putting it up to a community to wind up saying, what do you want? Which system? But just like with assessments, I think you need to educate them both ways and show them, you go this route, here's what's going to happen with this option. If you go this route, here's what your options are here. So I have no problem putting it that way. But realize that I think John's got the point with saying there is power in numbers. There is power in numbers, and we have that power to have a great school system. I think that's the other thing too, is you keep on pushing the programs and make this a system that attracts people into our community to wind up saying, buy houses in Washingtonville. This is the place to raise your child. This has always been. Professionals have come here from New York City. Those people, years ago, there was a movie, Copland. If you ever saw it, it was directed by one of our graduates here, 1981, James Mangold. It was based on Washingtonville. This was a place that policemen, firemen, professionals from the city or workers from the city, basically, and those who lived, the farmers who lived here. First time I remember going on November 1st, wondering where my class was. They weren't in my class. Where are they? Is this a holiday? I thought they were taking it off. No, it's hunting season. Okay? This community has changed a lot in the 40-plus year that I've been here. But one thing has never changed, and that's the quality of basic people that are in here. There's a good basic people that we've got to pull together in this community to wind up saying, this is the way our town is going to be. Everybody is welcome here, but at the same time, here's the way we're going to run our town. And it's going to be for everybody.
And it sends a loud and clear message.
Yes.
We have to be united.
So, I don't know your answer. Do you support award systems?
Do I support?
Yes.
I support putting it up for a vote. How's that?
That's all.
In other words, and giving people the option, but giving them what happens when they choose option A, ward, and non-ward. Right. So that's my answer. I think I had said
You speak about galvanization. We just had a mayoral election in Washingtonville. 275 people came out to vote.
I was at least 275th. I was one of them.
Right. So galvanization is something that really is a focus that has to be brought forward.
Yeah. You guys have it. What you guys have done with the placemaking, in terms of turning this around and in the town, the look that has happened the last 3-4 years, what it's been, it has really changed the atmosphere in here. When you go through the town, it was really kind of cool. It was more than just Washingtonville. It suddenly became a huge family in which the holiday parades at Christmas or the little concerts or whatever they were doing down in the middle of town, utilizing that space there. Now they've got that the gazebo or whatever that's going up across from the middle school and that with the boat launch or whatever's going to be there. You have got the ball rolling. And so therefore, to get like a snowball effect, keep on getting more people involved. Realize that these, have as many events as you can keep on doing. By the way, that's not a board thing, but that's the town thing. If the two working together, somewhere along the line, talking to each other about how we can make this a more desirable place to attract the type of people we need to do. That's what our function is with the education. Because let's face it, this is one of the biggest selling points of the whole town, how good this school district is. And so therefore, it used to be a selling point. We used to give, when I was yearbook advisor, we used to give a yearbook to each of the real estate brokers. Because we want them to see, the yearbook, technically speaking, should be the historical approach of this is what happened in our town this past year, not just with our school, but with our town. And so therefore, they could say, this is where I want to raise my child. When we were choosing a district, even though that we worked in this district, we looked at the other districts in Orange County. And then we said, who do we want raising our child? Because that essentially the teachers will see them more than we will. We chose Washingtonville. Why not? It was the best place.
Can I ask you one question? How many voters turned out in Washington
How many voters turned out in Washingtonville? For what?
for the last vote?
For the mayoral vote?
For the mayor vote?
275.
270. How many showed up for the Board of Education election that we had 3 years ago when we were on? 1,500. So that was,
Yes.
yeah. So, right. So it's like, we get sometimes more for the Board of Education than we get for the
How many
town.
voters?
I'm sorry?
How many voters?
Well, that's it. It's a small percentage of it.
Yes.
I mean, that's something we have to work on,
No,
obviously.
my question then is, 3 years ago, how many people came out and voted in the town elections?
That I don't
You just
have.
gave an example of the town change, the village, Washington changed. And I would like to know, using data, of course, I'd like to know if these changes are good, did the amount of people voting increase? If it didn't, then that isn't the answer.
Right, that's a good question.
I just want, I just want to jump in. I agree with almost everything Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Kevin has said. You know, I think that the school district is the heart of the community. Everybody who moves here looks at the school district. It's the heart of the community. It really is. It's such a big, but I do disagree with Mr. O'Neill's about galvanizing voters. Of course, that should be first and foremost every single time. But studies show it doesn't continue. If there's a threat, people come out, but it doesn't continue. So, you know, of course, there are plenty more voters, you know, now in the pool, but I think going forward, we just, you know, we want to ensure that there's equal representation throughout the town. So I think you have to give the voters a choice before it's too late.
Mr. Brennan, we need you to just, your opinion on the board system.
I believe in the award system very strongly. I'm, like all of us, I own a house, it's right across from the memorial. I love walking out to my paper every day and seeing Scunamunk Ridge. And I wanted to stay that way. Now, I'm Jewish, so people who know me over the years have come to me and said, you know, is it anti-Semitism? You know, is this no, it's not. I know anti-Semitism. Trust me, I know anti-Semitism. Okay? Many years ago, we should rest in peace, Michael Spear, whose kids I had, all 8 of them, wanted to make a Catholic school in Washingtonville. Okay? We were panicked. We saw all our kids going out the door. They were going to go to Mike Spear's. It didn't happen. But the bottom line of this whole thing is, whether it's East Ramapo, whether it's Lakewood, I know these communities. Trust me, I know these communities. I know Kiers Joel. When my first wife died, it was the only place I could go to say Kaddish, which is supposed to say every day. The people themselves are pretty nice. The community, that's not anti-Semitism. That's they have patience, they do certain things a certain way, okay? When I see all the farmland for sale around here, I want to throw up, okay? Yeah, I believe in the award system, but I think it's really important that we do it, and the reality is, Kevin was talking to a group over here before. There are bills that go to Cuomo's desk on a yearly basis. He doesn't sign them. He doesn't sign them, he vetoes them. Because I'm hearing for the first time, Governor, that the Board of Education group in the state doesn't support it. And other big groups, the teachers' unions, they don't support it. Okay? It's crazy. All right? For us, for Sullivan County, for Rockland County, and possibly for Ulster County soon. So, yeah, I support the award system, but.
Can I ask a quick question? The award system for the Board of Ed or for the district, is that something that has to be mandated by the state?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
can we decide that as a?
Yeah, it has to be allowed by the
Oh,
state.
The state has to approve it, and
They
then
allow
the
you.
community would vote on it. If they chose, you wouldn't have to if you didn't want
It's
to.
a choice.
The people vote.
It's a choice. But it's also the difference between, it's a conflict. Let's talk, they're board members, we're potential board members. It's public school and the resources that come to public schools, and it's the resources that can go to private schools that have absolutely nothing to do with our kids. Well, okay, so I'll just let it go at that.
FYI, we're halfway there.
Oh my gosh.
I'm working
Gotta put a
hard.
timer on it.
Okay, we're gonna drop it down to 2 minutes to questions. Okay, what are your ideas for the district or board in communicating better and more with citizens such as seniors that may not utilize social media to help increase voter turnout for the school budget election?
I promise to keep all my answers under 1 minute from now on, because it's already 8:30. And I still have to go close
This page
that.
is done.
So senior women love me. And it's my number one demographic for some reason. So I think it's important, like I interact with seniors all the time. So I think it is important, since they don't use social media, many of them, to make sure they know what's going on. So I'm gonna be very quick.
You can post at the supermarket, we can make a deal with the local newspaper, anybody here from the paper, listen, let's negotiate right now. Yeah, paper, right? I mean, I'm not technically a millennial, I'm in the middle. 78 is my birth year, today's my birthday. I had to get that in there, that was perfect. Yeah, so definitely, I mean, there are so many posting, I mean, how many people put stuff up at Stop and Shop? Let's get a square, man, right? That'd be perfect, who doesn't go there? Or even the ShopRites, because sometimes I like to go to Monroe and get my Spanish stuff on. We could post there too. All right, that's it.
Obviously in agreement, but also maybe we could look at maybe transporting, maybe some sort of transportation that we can use to bring some of the citizens to the high school to vote. And we can also get Colleen, because she has that bright yellow car, and we can make it a convertible, and she can just drive through Washingtonville and those communities and just yell it out.
Yeah, I have to agree with all these. It's like, how do you...
The Colleen thing?
Yeah, the Colleen thing. Oh, she'll love us volunteering. It's like, but she's always big in the district anyway, so I don't have to talk about Colleen. But getting information out there, better signs or something, where seniors would wind up like talking. I am a senior. Believe it or not. And Friday is my birthday, and I turned 68. So I am in that group. And it's like, but it's also,
So we're going to drive you there.
so I think that's an important thing. There are some people who don't drive. And maybe we need to develop some sort of a system whereby we can get information to them. To
Field trip.
We'll do that. Little buses. Why not?
Mr. Brunner?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because for a lot of years, our goal was to bring out as many positive voters as possible for the district, for the budget, so that because the senior citizens would come and just vote no.
Yes.
Okay, now, I don't know if, I'm 71. There were a lot of senior, one of the things though, I think it's NHS, they have the senior prom, that they've had for a bunch of years. That has been awesome in terms of, maybe the senior citizens are looking, wow, maybe I don't have to vote no. Maybe if there are some kind of programs, it's a very vague concept I have right now, of going to the senior centers with the kids, because they love the kids, and talking to them, saying, look, come out and vote for me. And maybe, like I said, transportation, it's a biggie. But yeah, it's funny, senior citizens used to be a dirty word on elections.
Christie, we're gonna be,
Hold it.
what,
I'm going to be 85 tomorrow. In case anyone- no.
what are your suggestions or ideas on handling the declining enrollment at Round Hill Elementary, which in turn affects the district as a whole?
That is an excellent question. I don't really have a lot of ideas. How do you turn something like that around? I mean, there are options, but is that going to hurt the district as a whole? I've heard people say that maybe we should rezone. I don't know. How does that hurt the other schools? Maybe we should start recruiting kids from the city and just bring them up here. It's a nicer place to go to school. I really honestly could not tell you. That's something that would require a lot of research, consideration, and consulting people who know a little bit more about something like this. As a mom, I have no answer.
Well, obviously, we can't control how many children come in unless we go with her plan by abducting, police captain, abducting children from the city, you know. But the district has already, and it's really the superintendent and his administration, have already started to discuss certain alternatives that we're not able to speak about right now. However, I can assure one thing, there are plans. There were rumors, I don't know where these rumors come from, about a year or two ago, there was a rumor out there that we sold we sold Round Hill, all these kind of crazy.
Yeah, a mom said
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that someone, that
Right.
Round Hill was bought. I brought that to Roy's attention. Round Hill was bought, and he brought me the printout off the
Right.
website showing that we still own Round Hill.
There, no matter what, there are plans for Round Hill, and some of them are really kind of exciting and could really be advantageous to this district. So everything is on the table, including possible rezoning. Not saying that that's what's happening. Things are being discussed. However, they're not being discussed really in detail with us yet.
I thought redistricting was already decided. It was decided at a Board of Ed meeting, but then it was just pushed to next year.
No, if that was if that was decided at a board meeting, none of us were there.
Yeah.
None of the board members were there. Another rumor.
Yeah. Another rumor. Yeah.
Put that with Round Hill was sold to whatever. But Round Hill is always going to be here.
Yes.
Right. And with that, I wish I had a solution to everything. It would be great. This, I would say, again, if you want to promote it, pulling in younger family, go back to the idea of getting in touch with real estate brokers, trying to sell houses to people of young, selling us as a community to raise your family. This is the place where you should raise your family. And maybe we need to remarket what Washingtonville is to wind up attracting them, if that be the case. But the other thing is there are other plans that could happen, and the building will not go to waste. That's for dang sure.
I have to be honest, I mean, if you try to recruit more people to move here, unless we fix the looming, the scary reality.
We have no control over that.
No, we don't, but we
That's
also
right.
don't want to, we don't want to draw people to an area that we can all look at each other and say, we could really lose part of it. We're scared. We're having discussions about making wards so that we don't lose part of it. How can we attract more people here and say, yes, move here? But
Again, remember what our job is. What we're running for is on the Board of Education.
Right.
We have to go back to that picture of what we are putting ourselves out here for tonight. And that is running the school district and creating a quality education for our kids and an attractive place for other people. I think we have to keep on focusing on that.
And also, I think sometimes, and I know it's not on purpose, but sometimes we're kind of being confused with what our politicians, what our representatives are supposed to be doing. And sometimes we're getting the brunt of what should be brought to our politicians that 42 of us vote for, come out and vote for.
We should bring that to the politicians.
All of us. This should be done as a community. The politicians, look,
But the
it
school
sounds
board-
nice that the school board
statewide
is
is
definitely supportive, okay? But we're also community members, and we have the same concerns. And our children are in the same schools. So we're all in this boat together.
So since the state school board organization has stated that they're opposed to ward systems, what would you do to convince them that that isn't right for our community?
Truthfully, you want an honest answer? There is nothing that we could do because it's very, very political. It's about money. It's about who's doing what for who. I'm talking about up in Albany, okay?
I understand that. That's
Right,
not the point
right.
I'm asking. What I'm asking is...
It's a voice in the wilderness.
What is the board going to do to change the state board's position that they don't support? I'm sorry, Washingtonville is one of, as I was told, Washingtonville is one of the few school boards that oppose creating ward systems.
We did not.
We've never
Because when Mike
opposed.
Bush asked Washingtonville, they voted no.
Okay.
We get back to where we're
Let's
supposed
go.
to be.
So,
Right.
Mr. Brunner, do you have any opinions on how we can increase enrollment at Round Hill?
No.
Okay, so moving on to the next
I
one.
didn't answer that question.
Oh, you didn't?
I have about 5 minutes on this question. I wish I was privy to some of the information the current board members are. Obviously, they have plans for the building. I think redistricting should be provided to the public. The public should know if that's one of the considerations happening ahead of time. It's going to be an unpopular thing, but I think it's about communicating. If that's part of the plan, the parents should know.
Well, first of all, there is no plan. You have to understand that. One of the things that I said, no, they're discussing options. In other words, nothing has been brought to the school board yet. So that's why we can't discuss it.
Says the two, I have to say this, because that's not what we're getting. That's, as a mom and a PTO parent, that is not the information that I have personally been given, nor have the parents here. It was specifically told to us that it was announced at a Board of Ed meeting, and that due to a lack of time, that it has to be pushed to next year.
Should I say it on microphone?
No, I'm
telling
saying,
you.
that's what we're being told.
With all due
But who's
respect,
telling you that?
I'm gonna skip to the next question.
And he should be here.
So quickly, this is a quick question that you can all answer.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere specifically that you, that someone who's not here or whatever can go and find out about your background information, like maybe a webpage?
I have a Facebook page.
Okay.
Johnson for BOE. Go like my page, please.
Okay, John, do you have anywhere, like on the you have the Board of Ed?
I'm on the,
And
right.
Kevin, you have your info on the Board of Ed?
Yes.
And actually, I have copies of that over in the corner if people want to take it and throw them out.
David,
Make plans.
is there somewhere that they can go and find information on you based?
My Facebook.
Okay?
I have a Facebook page, Kevin Ratty for BOE, and I also handed out to some people who were on time, all you people who were late, a little bio about why I'm running for the school.
Okay.
I'm not going to fight with
We
him.
touched base on that. All right, give me a strength in our district that you feel our district can be proud of.
Oh,
And that's that.
Yeah, we're drawing it again.
Is there a strength within our district, something that you feel is a strength within our district that you think that we can be proud of?
Do you want me to answer that?
Go ahead.
2 words, kids. I'm serious. I mean, I've been dealing with this for 33 years, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. We are surrounded by some very wealthy districts. Our people are not so wealthy here, we're, middle-class people. Our kids do great. I have my Facebook, when I retired, my friends and my sons talked me into going on Facebook. I got stuff from classes in the 80s, the 90s, whatever. Okay, our kids do great. And I'm not saying, talk about police officers, talk about firefighters, talking about members of the military, talk about people who have run their own businesses all over the country, all over the world. So I guess I got on the soapbox.
I think
Two words, our kids, and that's.
I completely agree with Mr. Brunner. Our kids, our teachers, the awesome programs we have in our community.
I want to say the talent in our community, just everyone. We have the talent and we have the fire. And that's our biggest strength that we should be proud of.
Well, everyone took the good ones, but I'm going to add something else, okay? Even though I've been up here for 27 years, and obviously I lived in the city before that, the most striking thing that really hits my heart about Washingtonville and why I'm proud to be part of the Washingtonville, I have never seen a community come together in moments of crisis, of families that are hurting and in pain. And I'll tell you, for a city kid, to see that, I have never experienced that. And anytime I talk to people who are not from Washingtonville, that's the number one piece that comes out. And that's why, because of what I witness anytime there's a crisis, that's why I feel that, and I'm not giving up on galvanizing voters, because this community can be united. We just have to make them aware of everything. But that's what I'm the most proud of, and I think it's the strength of the entire community, which filters to the children, because the children see that. We're role models.
There's an old phrase that says apple tree, you know? And so therefore we do have great kids, but that's because we have great parents that go with that. And I said earlier, Washingtonville, it's a great place to be when bad things happen. I, 23 years ago, witnessed that, and we were the recipients of it. And so, if anything, we met people and we talked to people that I have no idea who they were. Our house was open, they came in, they took care of everything, of anything for us. I can't thank people enough for all these years. So, if anything, that's our strength, is our community.
3 left. Hopefully we'll do them quickly because they're doozies. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, what value do you see in educational field trips for the elementary level, and how do you feel we can increase them for the children?
I was a proud class dad of Miss Sarator's 12th grade class and constant field trip attendee. I think I had more fun than the kids most of the time. But I think it's really important. I was, you know, the PTAs, is my understanding, raise the money for field trips. Is that pretty much true? You know, I do think that, you know, with a $100+ billion budget, if it doesn't violate, I don't know the legalities behind it, because they're not sitting board member or employee. But I think that the district, class trips are critically important to young kids. So I think the district should also support that. And I don't want to keep everybody too long, so I'll just pass it over.
I mean, it's another leg of the education process, right? There's only so much that a child can get from a book and in a classroom. You got to get them out there, let them see, let them touch, let them smell, experience it all. Really get them involved. I hated history until I went to the museum. That's a true story.
There's research that says that a child who winds up experiencing life outside makes a better reader, because they can wind up predicting what's happening in terms of the next pages that are happening in the book. The more we can get kids on field trips and out there, the more experiences, because not everyone comes from an economic background whereby their parents can supply them those type of experiences. Those field trips, many times for some kids, is a vacation that they can't have with their own parents. So I am all for that. I know we say we got a $103 million budget. Realize that, yeah, if you wind up adding that money, it will cost more. I'm for that, trust me.
Yeah, field trips used to be part of the educational process, and it's not. Okay, we live in the New York metropolitan area. New York metropolitan. There's so much just in the Hudson Valley historically. It doesn't cost a lot of money. A few buses take kids over there. They're desperate. They want kids over there. And because then maybe the kids will go with their parents. And as I said, down the city, there's got to be something, it's part of the process. Kids can't just sit in classrooms, just can't.
How do you feel that the district can partner with parents who may have concerns regarding diversity issues?
Partner with parents. I'm not sure I understand the question completely.
With concerns regarding diversity issues?
We have diversity issues. I think we're pretty diverse. I'm not sure how to answer that. I know someone mentioned that perhaps our teachers and administration don't reflect the diversity of the community, but to me, that's not the important thing. I am Puerto Rican. I went to elementary school in a predominantly Italian neighborhood. That did not affect my education. I then went to a school system with predominantly Southwestern folk, and that didn't affect my education. So I'm really not sure about the question, but that's just my opinion on the matter.
Can I have that question one more time?
How do you feel the district can partner with parents who may have concerns regarding diversity issues within the district?
Are we talking, I'm not sure whether we're talking diversity concerns among the students or
I think
among
we're discussing teacher, like, do we see it within our teachers and staff?
That was my question. I think
Okay,
that was
yes,
my question.
okay, thank you.
It was, I kind of combined two together.
Yeah,
I hope
so
you
that's
don't mind.
mine.
All right.
So I'm relatively new to the district, and my
Okay.
daughter isn't in school yet, but she will be. And one of the things that I've been doing personally is getting to know where I live. So I go out, I've met with some of the administrations in schools, and and I have been talking to parents. I stay off of Facebook because I think it's toxic, right? It's so toxic and unhealthy. So for a new person coming in, if the only information I got from Facebook about the district, it would taint me. It's horrible, and I'm saying that as a new person from Brooklyn. So my question is about reflecting the students and administration as the district is changing, because one of the things that I did research on is I know that in Orange County and Washingtonville that it's changing, but a lot of what the school administrators are not reflective of what is in what's coming into the community. And also about the hiring practices, about educators within the school system. So my question was about understanding what the hiring practices are, and not to say that that's necessarily the board's responsibility. I know that there's a co-laboring in terms of like the superintendent as the overhead, being the overhead, and the board being supportive, and the community also being supportive as well. But I was just concerned about that because I want facts. I don't want the garbage that I'm seeing. Sure. That's why I'm here, to get direct information.
I think if anything, what happens is, certainly with the hiring practices, I think our people who is there right now, we've got, there's going to be a change in terms of personnel director who's going to be involved with that, with Lynn Imperato coming in as being personnel. Yeah, and I think it's important for the superintendent to get that person out to the different locations where there are student teachers, for example, who are searching for jobs as teachers. There is I know that there is, I was a supervisor of student teachers the last 10 years for Oneonta College. And so, as such, in Cortland, I believe it is, SUNY Cortland, in the spring, they have a job fair in which all of this is available. I know also, we're listed on OLAS, is it? In which it has that. If anything, we could somehow promote that we are an inclusive school district, and we would like to involve, and diverse, we would like to involve as many different cultures as possible and reflective in our staff. That's, again, it's up to those who apply. That's another thing too. Do they want to live in this area? It's like some of it is beyond our control, like of getting people to apply for that, but you have to definitely go out and search for them too at the same time. So I guess if anything, the board could promote that in terms of like ask the superintendent or promote the superintendent to get people out to talk to people outside the district.
Yes,
Coffee's
we
one
had a
of them.
scandal here. A bunch of
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago, we had a scandal, literally, okay? There was I want to say it was a convention where.
Conference, yeah.
A conference, okay? African-American and Hispanic educators, okay? People who were applying for jobs. And this is years ago. Our personnel person said that they went, and they didn't, okay? And this brought a whole bunch of stuff up. One of the things that Max said is true. It's who applies, but if we show, and I'm thrilled that Lynn Imparata is coming in I didn't know, I'm like, yay. This is a good person. She was just principal over at Cornwall High School. And she was an English teacher with us for years and years. Wonderful person. Someone who goes out and does things. And I think one of the things has to be done. We have to recruit and we have to show. I mean, it's not something we do. It's maybe something to influence. Is to go to these things, have a plan for it, and to show what Washingtonville is. Because it may be that the perception of Orange County is, I don't live there. Yeah, I don't live there. So, but I mean, you got to recruit.
I hope
I
that
think,
answers the two questions.
Yeah, I'm from Flatbush, Brooklyn. I lived over half my life in Brooklyn. We chose Washingtonville because it had more diversity from some of the other communities. I think there's about mid-20s Latinos and about 10%, a little over 10% African Americans. But I do feel that it's important to find qualified, and there are plenty of qualified African Americans, Hispanics, to take some of these positions. And as a board member, I think it's important to have some of the educators and administrators reflect to the community. But I stress qualified. Yeah, the MRPD has plenty of qualified executive ranks, but once in a while, people don't get promoted who aren't qualified. And regardless of what background you come from, qualification should be a very important piece of that.
How can the community, this is the last two, how can the community support efforts with the school to reduce concerns with vaping and our children?
Oh, thank you. No.
Right now, I know that they're working on that right now. And I say they're working on it in the sense that it was brought up, an issue was brought up when we were looking for superintendent feedback for the new superintendent. So I brought it up at the next board meeting to wind up saying, because the students brought it up too. That was the biggest concern. I went to the meeting where the students were actually giving feedback to Bill Hecht, who was the superintendent of BOCES, who was helping us in these forums regarding a new superintendent. And one of the first #1 concern that the kids had, first #1 in the high school, was the vaping and the juuling. And then that evening, the same thing with the parents. So what we need to do is we need to certainly educate the parents on what this is. This is not a harmless little thing that we're talking about here. It's like, yes, they say, oh, it's not as bad as smoking. No, come on, you're putting drugs in your body, it doesn't matter what it is. It's still bad. You want to live a long life. You want to live a healthy life. But, so education is one thing in the school. The other thing is educate the parents on it, but having a policy, which we have to develop, on what's going to happen with teeth in it to help parents and help kids, especially, realize this is not going to be allowed in our schools, period. Case closed.
I just want to add, because that was my question also.
Sure.
About the fact that, again, I'm a new resident, only under 2 years, but I noticed that there are a lot of vaping facilities that are popping up since I've been here. I noticed that, so I guess that was my question, because I wasn't, all of a sudden you see a lot of empty, and then all of a sudden there's like a doctor, somebody vaping. I'm like, why would I want to see that within my community? I didn't move from what I perceive to be a bad community to come here to kind of like deal with that. So I wasn't clear as to what was being done or whether, I know it's not a school problem, right? I know that for sure. I know that it's something that can be addressed when we partner together, but I just wanted to pose it to the individuals who are running for office as to how we can support the efforts, because I know that we have to get the politicians involved. I know that those things, but was curious as to what your thoughts were.
I think it's important to get the education out there to the kids and the parents. And this way, if the source dries up, the place moves. You know, it's like, you know, businesses stay in business because they've got clientele. And what we have to do is we have to educate them enough so we take away their clientele.
But it's actually the post office in Salisbury Mills that just popped over.
Yeah, they opened up there out there.
Mr. Brennan?
Yeah, it's a question of educating, okay? And it's also, when I heard that, I was at your meeting, and I spoke to some of my friends in the high school, and a policy is being, a new code of conduct that is dealing with this, and, you know, that is being formulated.
Yes, it is, and if I might follow up, I had presented this at the last, the Board of Ed meeting when we were reaching out to the community for the superintendent. After that conversation that night, I met with Mr. Reese, and I met with Mr. Conley in the high school, who is really special. They're both special people, but Brian Conley, having been raised here and having had a strong, palpable pride and just and almost an anger that it has come to this point, and really how it was described to me by Mr. Reese was like a virus. There's a couple, and then all of a sudden it has descended. So they have policies that are going to be in place starting in the fall. You can't really start a new code of conduct in the middle of the year when you're talking about changing disciplinary actions against kids. So from what I understand, the staff was notified that this is going to be coming into play, but his biggest thing that he asked me is that we can mobilize parents and make parents aware so that they are at these educational things and are aware of the scope of the problem. So rest assured, you know, it is, in Mr. Conley's words, I'm done, it's over. So it's coming, which was very reassuring, but there's also something called Parents Against Vaping and e-cigarettes that I'm looking into sort of maybe bringing a local, you know, chapter of that locally, but I think that, you know, they really are taking strong action. So that was very reassuring.
Yeah, I agree. I think vaping is a huge problem. 4 or 5 years ago, when I started doing the town cleanup each year, it was cigarettes on the side of the road. And now it's vape cartridges. I'm not kidding. Myself, Christy, and Linda Standish did Tolman Road, and the amount of vape cartridges you saw on the side of the road were incredible, absolutely incredible. So I think education, like Kevin and David said, education, having a policy in place, and really the education has to focus on all the studies. If you read the studies, you know, the kids think that there's no harm to vaping because they're not smoking a cigarette. It's all about educating, you know, the children and having consequences if it's against the rules, and follow up with those consequences.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry, I just want a positive thing. In 7th grade, Ms. Dempsey is doing a whole health class on vaping.
Yes, she is.
And I'll tell you right now, my daughter's definitely afraid of it. And she won't touch it. She knows it's worse than cigarettes. She can give you the stats and 5 or 6 research articles on it. So kudos to Ms. Dempsey over in the middle school because she's doing a fabulous job. My daughter won't mess with it. She's a diver in Washingtonville varsity. She's not messing with that. She thinks she's going to get sick. She's like, nope, not for me.
My daughter's
so the
in the same
education
class.
is happening now. I'm hoping that maybe some of the other grade levels will be doing the same thing.
They
It
do it
started
in
in 7th
environmental
grade.
chemistry in the high school.
It's
They do it as
starting.
well.
It's
And they
definitely
just did
trickling down.
PSAs on it in environmental chemistry.
Our kids are smart.
And I do it with my size 12 shoes.
That's my reaction. I don't know if that's the Spanish mom in me that wants to take off the chancleta and hurl it down. I don't know. But listen, we do have to educate parents, and I get that. You know, there are a lot of parents in our community who don't think there's a problem with it.
Right.
And I wonder if they're aware that There's not just tobacco on these cartridges, ladies and gentlemen.
No, popcorn rolls.
MJ's in there too. And I've smelled it in schools. This is a huge, huge problem. I don't know if I fully agree or understand why we can't put a policy with teeth in place in the middle of the school year. I don't fully agree with that because it's September to June. So I would like to look at that a little bit more closely because if we have a problem come up today, I want it solved tomorrow. I'm not waiting for the next school year. I don't think anybody should,
Because what
especially with
happens
something
is,
this
well, my
serious.
kids only got, you know, why is my kid getting 2 days out of school suspension when that kid only got 1 day in school? And that is, I don't know if culture is the right word, but shockingly enough, that's the press back from a huge portion of parents, probably nobody that's sitting in this room, but the pushback from parents who are defending their kids.
For breaking school rules.
Specifically,
Yes.
parents who are sending kids into the school to sell, you know, drugs. So
And we have a bigger problem than we thought.
It's a huge.
We have a bigger problem than we thought because if
Yes,
parents are
way
defending
bigger.
and supporting the breaking of school rules, then we really, really, really need to get on educating everybody
Yeah.
about this.
Last question. It's a doozy.
Oh, boy.
What are the plans to increase the variety programs that promote careers in STEM programs, entrepreneurial focus, or trades? Most of what is offered is sports-related activities. What if the child isn't interested in sports?
You saved all my questions.
I'm sorry, I did.
All good.
But
I want
I
you to just
like
come
the
up here and
question.
talk.
Dave?
One of the programs, when I came to Orange County, I came through the VOTEC Center. And I knew a little bit about vocational education. The whole STEM movement has been wonderful, but I don't think there's been enough because every year I would have 6 parents who kid wanted to go to the VOTEC Center, I wanted them to go, nope, they're not going. And we have a great resource there. We really do. And what people don't understand is when the kids go to, and it's only junior and senior year, I understand that. They have activities, they have clubs, they make the kids part of that program. A bunch of years ago, I keep going back, I always used to go to the BOCE's graduation, the Pro-Tech graduation. And Robbie Green and I are sitting there, and they have these awards. And the highest award that a kid can get is a gold award. And there was this amazing young woman who got it, and she was from Washingtonville. And Robbie and I looked at each other. We didn't know her, because that was the focus of her life. The answer, quite honestly, I've been out of the building for 5, 6 years now. We have it's not STEM, but we have a great drama program. I mean, that has been, Jody Davis, rest in peace. That was her thing. That's what she created. It's continuing, okay? My sons were not athletes. And again, the guy who ran this, Rob Leonard, is now the assistant principal. There was a program for kids interested in editing and filming and all this. Whether it still exists or not, I don't know. It does. It does. So, you know, there are, when I first got here, sports were it. But it had grown and grown and grown, especially with Jody, and especially our Lara Held, who is, she does the clay and sculpture thing. She has a whole club with the bowls and all that stuff. There's lots of stuff in the building. I mean, I don't know what in the other buildings, but there's a lot of stuff in the high school.
I mean, I think that the district also needs to acknowledge the kids that are doing well in the VOTEC program and stuff, because you see a lot of articles and information about sports and the kids that are winning awards at BOCES and winning, you know, drama awards and stuff like that. You're not really seeing that.
So, yeah, so I originally, so the STEM program, I'm not familiar with all the acronyms, but I know the BOCES program. You know, at Betty's, I've hired people who've done the culinary program there, the law enforcement program there. I know they just received, your son received a big award, you know, part of his team with this automotive. I think higher education is not for all children. You know, and I think that, you know, there is huge opportunity for children to enter the trades. All the studies show that the tradesmen, plumbers, and electricians are all starting to age out. You know, formal education is not necessarily for everyone. As a chamber board member, as vice president of chamber, we gave out a couple of scholarships, and I was one of the strongest proponent of giving scholarships to people who are entering trade schools. Not just the kids who score high academically, who get $1 million in scholarships anyway, but people going to trade schools. I was emphatic about including half of the scholarship money to people going into trades. And we could have done a better job of getting that more out there, the district and the chamber. But there's still a scholarship now. One of the scholarships goes to academics and community service, the other goes to the trades. And I think it's critically important that maybe higher education is not necessarily for everybody. Trade schools, I fully support it.
My daughter would benefit greatly from more STEM activities and projects here. So for those who don't know, STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. I am aware that the middle school is having a STEAM fair, which is Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics, which I think is a great step in the right direction. So maybe, I don't know because I'm not on the board and I haven't had Board 101 yet, but it seems to me that our district is already moving in that direction, which is great news, especially for me, because she's an athlete because mommy forced her, but she's really a STEM kid.
Well, actually, the whole state is moving this way. I have to tell you, it's like right now there's what they call the next generation of science standards, which have been moving down across the country. We're one of 26 states that are involved in it. I happen to know this because of the fact for the last 5 years I've been working with Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES with a science program they have over there. In fact, tomorrow I'll be teaching 5th graders, which is really kind of cool, how to use microscopes and work with that. But in that case, what happens is the new standards that are that you will hear that will roll out will not be called Common Core in Science. It'll be called the NISLS, the New York State Science Learning Standards, which are really the next generation of science standards with the New York twist to a couple of them. But there is engineering that's involved with it because there's the area of life science, physical science, which biology is getting its name back, chemistry, physics, and the other one is ETS. Engineering, Technology, and Applications in Science. All children, kindergarten through 12th, will have to do engineering, and so therefore we've got kindergartners who are building things to help, like preventing an ice cube from melting. I know that doesn't sound like much, but what happens is kindergartners have to now know that matter can exist in more than one state, not just like, but they are not responsible for gases, because developmentally, kindergartners wouldn't understand the concept that there's gases and molecules out here. That said, okay, you're going to see more engineering that's going to be involved. We have a great esports program over at the high school, getting the kids involved with that. Kevin Calvert? Yeah, Kevin Calvert is involved with that and has brought that program up where the kids, I know it sounds crazy, they're playing video games, but the thought process that's involved there is getting kids involved technologically. Kevin, I agree with you totally in terms of like higher education. I think what happened was they started this push that everybody's got to go to college. That's the wrong thing. Everybody's got to have a great life. Right. That's the thing. Everybody's got to be happy in life. So therefore, we've got to help our kids, direct them in the right programs. Now realize this, that when you wind up sending them something like, if they want to say, I want to work on cars, working on cars is not what it was 20, 30 years ago. You really got to be smart to do this stuff. As you know, it's all electronic now, computer-oriented, all this kind. So we still, K through 12, have to get our kids prepared for this so they can be able to think that way. But we got to promote programs like what's out at BOCES. They've got excellent programs out there. We've got excellent teachers that are working with this stuff in our tech, which used to be, what was it? Shop. All that kind of stuff. What was it called? Wood shop, all those kinds. Now it's like, it's technology. So I know in the high school it's working that way. You're right. In the elementary, we had a coding program that was over in Little Britain that was I was watching a first grade class, and they were coding these robots to wind up moving in certain directions. And the teacher was saying, "I want you to move it, program it so it comes halfway to me and then goes back." And I was watching these first graders wind up doing that. It was so friggin' exciting, watching this happen. These kids are smarter than we think.
Kevin had too much coffee.
Yes, I had a sip before
He's the
that.
only one with coffee.
Mr. Burr, this is your last answer. And then
No, here it is. That was the last one.
Here we go. Thank you all for coming. Go ahead.
Some of you don't know, I'm Steve Keel, I'm the principal of this building. Just real quick, John O'Neill asked me on the way out, please apologize to all of you for running out in the middle. He obviously did not need to do that. Everything's fine, but they had
He
to go.
did leave
So,
any information if you guys want
on his behalf, not that I'm endorsing anyone. He just asked me on the way out. These are all wonderful people. I know every single one of them for a very long time. Also, I really just want to thank Stacy. Please choose.
Thank you for all coming. I
Thank
know we
you
were
so
missing,
much.
but thank
And
you for all
anyone who
coming.
sends in questions, thank you so much.
Yes.